It's 2 p.m. on Thursday, September 11th here in Korea, live from Seoul. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. Let's check out the stories we are following at this hour. U.S. President Barack Obama outlines his strategy for stamping out the Islamic State militant group, which includes sending more troops to Iraq. Korea's health ministry proposes a price hike in cigarettes in an effort to lower the nation's smoking rate, but there's already criticism against the move. And the Chuseok holiday is over, but a deadlock still persists at the National Assembly, fueling frustration among the public. Now let's begin with the address made by U.S. President Barack Obama on the growing threat of the Islamic State militants in Syria and Iraq. Our Shin Se-min gives us the key points of Obama's speech as well as his plans to send more U.S. military personnel to the region.
Our objective is clear. We will degrade and ultimately destroy ISIL through a comprehensive and sustained counterterrorism strategy.
In a 15-minute televised speech, U.S. President Barack Obama laid out his plan for dealing with the militant group that calls themselves the Islamic State. It's a plan that includes forming what he called a broad coalition, launching airstrikes on strategic targets, and assisting the Iraqi government in their fight against the militants. Obama was making the address to the American people, but also had a message for the Islamic State, also known as ISIL.
We will hunt down terrorists who threaten our country wherever they are. That means I will not hesitate to take action against ISIL in Syria as well as Iraq. If you threaten America, you will find no safe haven.
Achieving these goals will require support both domestically and internationally. President Obama called on the U.S. Congress to support his moves and approve the release of resources to train and equip local forces for their fight against the militants. Ahead of the speech on Wednesday, President Obama spoke to Saudi Arabian King Abdullah by phone regarding the threat. Early reports say Saudi Arabia has granted a U.S. request to host an anti-IS training program. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
And while President Obama was speaking in Washington, America's top diplomat was in the Middle East drumming up support for the U.S. plan to confront the Islamic State. Our Park Ji-won has more.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry visited Baghdad on Wednesday, a matter of days after Iraq's new Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi was sworn in. Meeting with the new Iraqi leader, Kerry vowed U.S. support for the new government's battle against Islamic State militants.
We're prepared to take, not only with respect to ISIL, which is critical, and your own military's commitment to reconstituting itself and to being prepared to take the fight to ISIL, but also your commitment to the broad reforms that are necessary in Iraq.
Kerry stressed that IS is a vicious terrorist organization, and the U.S. and many other countries will help counter the threat posed by the group.
There is literally no place for their barbarity in the modern world. And this is a fight that the Iraqi people must win, but it's also a fight that the rest of the world needs to win with them. And it's a fight the United States and the rest of the world need to support every single step of the way.
As Kerry was meeting high-level officials Wednesday, 3 car bombs exploded in eastern Baghdad, killing about 17 people and injuring dozens of others. Meanwhile, Russia's state news agency RIA Novosti reported of a possible nuclear threat by the IS militants. The news agency quoted comments by Andrei Novikov, the head of the Commonwealth of Independent States Anti-Terrorism Center, that suggested IS might have a nuclear capability. He said the terror group declared its intent to use nuclear weapons in June, and about 40 kilograms of uranium compounds had been stolen by insurgents from Mosul University in Iraq in July. However, atomic experts at the UN do not consider it to be a major threat, stressing that it would take years for IS to develop nuclear weapons. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
And now on to the situation in Ukraine, where the 5-day-old ceasefire between Ukrainian forces and pro-Russian separatists appears to be holding. Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko and Russian President Vladimir Putin, who had spoken on the phone on Tuesday, are said to be generally satisfied with how the ceasefire is progressing. Citing intelligence he received, President Poroshenko said about 70% of Russian troops have left Ukraine's borders. This despite Moscow's consistent denial that it sent any troops into Ukraine. For rebel-held parts of eastern Ukraine, Poroshenko promised more autonomy, but he flat-out rejected full independence of the regions of Donetsk and Luhansk, or a federalized eastern Ukraine favored by Russia. Now, President Putin, on the other hand, promised that Russia will respond with new nuclear and conventional weapons if NATO makes any military moves. And back here in Korea, the nation's high smoking rate has long been blamed on the low price of cigarettes, but that's about to change. The government has announced that price hikes are coming soon. Our Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
Smokers in Korea will soon have to pay almost double what they currently do for a pack of cigarettes. The government announced Thursday that it will push through plans to raise the average price of a pack by 2,000 won to 4,500 won, or roughly $4.30 starting next year. It's the first price hike in 10 years. The aim is to cut the country's high smoking rate.
The smoking rate of Korean adult males stands at around 44%, which is the highest among OECD member nations. The rate of teenagers stands at over 20%.
Cigarette prices in Korea are currently among the cheapest in the world, standing at just around one-third the OECD average. The health ministry believes a price hike is the most effective means of dropping smoking rates. As proof, it cites the 13 percentage point drop at the end of 2004 when the government last raised cigarette prices. Its goal is to cut the male smoking rate to 29% in 2020. Other anti-smoking measures laid out by the government include mandatory warning images on cigarette packaging and banning retailers from posting any kind of cigarette advertisement. Before any changes take effect, they will have to be approved by the National Assembly. And with both the ruling and opposition parties raising concerns that the measures will burden smokers in low-income bracket, passage is far from a certainty right now. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Now, it's been about a month since the government eased regulations aimed at boosting the real estate market, but because of those changes, concerns about the rapid rise in household debt are mounting. Here's our Kim Ji-yeon with more.
Household debt rose sharply in August, raising concerns that it's spiraling out of control. Housing loans jumped more than $4.5 billion in August from the previous month to $518 billion. Household debt also increased by $5.2 billion last month, inching up again after it surpassed its all-time high of $1 trillion in June. The mounting debt is seen as a result of government measures that ease limits on the amount of money people can borrow from banks when buying a home. The move is part of the expansionary policies by the economic team led by Finance Minister Choi Kyung-han to induce spending and promote corporate activity. The expansionary policies were further fueled by the Bank of Korea when it cut its base rate by 0.25 percentage point last month, ending a 15-month freeze. Critics say the government's policies will actually increase household debt in the longer term and ultimately stifle domestic demand as they encourage households to rack up higher debts. Although the finance minister did not directly comment on whether the central bank should make further cuts to its base rate, Choi has reiterated the importance of coordinated fiscal and monetary policies to boost government efforts to spur economic recovery. To drive his point home, the ministry pointed to lackluster on-quarter growth of 0.6% in the second quarter. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, people are back to work today after the 5-day Chuseok holiday weekend, but lawmakers are still trying to work through their differences over a bill to investigate April's ferry accident. Pressure from the public to come to an agreement is growing. Our Choi Yu-sun has this report.
Korea's ruling and opposition parties return from the 5-day Chuseok holiday, having listened to the people in regards to the current political standoff over the contested bill to probe April's ferry disaster. But it seems they only listened to what they wanted to hear. With no sign of a compromise, the ruling side continues to urge the opposition to cooperate in swiftly passing a number of economic and reform-related bills.
Each standing committee must immediately deliberate on the bills that concern the people's livelihood. The parliament must immediately pass the non-controversial bills pending at the assembly.
Referring to public anger over the political paralysis, party leader Kim Moo-sung called on the ruling and opposition floor leaders to reach a deal on the bill by the weekend. He then urged the parliamentary speaker to exercise his authority to call a session next Monday to vote on other pending bills with or without the opposition. The opposition, for its part, continues to pressure the ruling side to return to talks about giving the ferry victims' families more of a say in the accident investigation.
If the ruling party wants to restore public trust, it should first show a forward-looking position on passing the livelihood-related bills, including the Seoul ferry bill.
While the parliamentary speaker has no plans to invoke his authority at the risk of further lengthening the impasse, he's been in contact with the two parties to seek a solution to the crisis. With both parties unable to stand further public criticism, it's thought the two floor leaders will meet as early as Thursday to try iron out their differences. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
In the year 2012 for Korea was at its record high.
All of the day's important events close to home and around the world. Join Laah Hyun-kyung live from Seoul.
Shopping market thinks the true meaning of creation shines through. With the Asian Games set to kick off in Incheon in just over a week's time, some North Korean delegates are beginning to arrive. The first batch of 94 members will touch down at Incheon International Airport later this Thursday evening. The group will include North Korea's Olympic Committee Chief Chang Soo-myung, as well as its football and rowing teams. Now, the remainder of the athletes and coaches will continue to arrive throughout next week before the start of the event on September 19th. So many are wondering whether the upcoming Asian Games will soothe inter-Korean tensions, but another event garnering attention is a trip to the U.S. next week by South Korea's National Security Advisor. All eyes are on how Kim Kwon-jin's trip will pan out, especially with North Korea's foreign minister due in the U.S. in the coming days. Our Son Jung-in reports.
President Park's National Security Advisor Kim Kwon-jin will embark on a 3-day trip to the U.S. on Sunday in what will be his first trip to the country since he took up his new role in June. Sources say Kim is scheduled to meet his American counterpart Susan Rice and other security-related personnel to discuss a broad range of issues, including the Korea-U.S. alliance and the current diplomatic and security situation in Northeast Asia. In particular, the talks will likely center on Pyongyang's rapidly changing diplomatic stance following its decision to send its foreign minister Lee Soo-yong to a meeting of the UN General Assembly later this month. This will mark the first visit to the U.S. by a North Korean foreign minister in 15 years. During Kim's visit, the U.S. and South Korea will likely reaffirm their bilateral cooperation in dealing with the North's nuclear program and fine-tune details in strengthening security cooperation. Also, on military issues, attention is being drawn on how the talks will pan out regarding Washington's plan to deploy an advanced missile defense system called Terminal High Altitude Area Defense in South Korea. With the recent launch of a Unification Preparatory Committee and Seoul's proposal of high-level inter-Korean talks, Kim may also seek some advice regarding exchanges and cooperation measures during the anticipated talks. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Senior diplomats from Korea, China, and Japan are set to hold a trilateral meeting in Seoul on this Thursday for the first time in 10 months. Korea's foreign ministry says Deputy Minister Lee Kyung-soo, China's Vice Foreign Minister Laah Hyun-kyung, and Japan's Deputy Foreign Minister Shinsuke Sugiyama will discuss cooperative projects between the three nations, including those related to maritime affairs and cyber defense. Now, what's drawing the most attention to this one-day dialogue, though, are discussions on resuming an annual trilateral summit among the three state leaders, as well as foreign ministers that have been stalled for more than 2 years now. This, as last year's three-way summit was canceled due to soured relations over a range of territorial and historical disputes. In other news, exports of handsets and semiconductors continued their upward trend last month, leading the way for Korea's information and communications technology products. The Trade Ministry says although the total ICT exports edged down 2% from the same month last year, outbound shipments totaled more than $14 billion in August, which it says is still a significant gain, making for a $7.5 billion surplus. While outbound shipments of handsets and semiconductor display panels continued their growth streak for the third consecutive month, exports of digital televisions dropped. Now, instead of going through the hassle of buying a one-way transportation ticket or paying cash for every ride, millions of people in Korea are using a prepaid public transportation card known as the T-money card. The technology inside these cards is continuously evolving, as is its expansion abroad. Our Kwon So-ah has this next story.
More convenient, more compatible, more stylish, and more widely used. The Korea Smart Card Corporation's prepaid transportation card, known as the T-money card, was first introduced for subway and bus payments in the capital Seoul in 2004. This year, the card has been made compatible with nearly all forms of public transportation across the country. The most convenient part of the T-money card is its integration system. Whether you're traveling by subway, bus, or taxi, this one card can get you where you want to go. And not just in Korea. Other countries are scrambling to adopt the T-money system. Korea Smart Card CEO Choi Dae-sung told Arirang News that T-money America was established in New York last month. The company's first service abroad in Wellington, New Zealand, has been running since 2008.
When cards are held against the T-money card reader there, the settlement data is sent to Korea, and those results are transferred back to New Zealand. That's remote management service through cutting-edge technology.
And the so-called cashless bus ticketing system was introduced in Malaysia in 2010.
Southeast Asian countries have many concerns about their chaotic traffic conditions, and that's why they request consultations with our company, and we then participate in detailed mapping out of their systems.
Choi added that the service will expand even further by the end of this year and that the company does not want to limit its services to transportation. In Korea, the card is also used in daily micropayments at more than 50,000 places of business, such as convenience stores. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
And in health news, if you are a regular user of sleeping pills or sedatives, you may want to pay attention to this next report. A new study suggests benzodiazepine, which is widely used in anxiety and insomnia medications, raises the risk of Alzheimer's disease. Researchers from France and Canada analyzing thousands of people over the age of 65 in Canada found that those who had used the drugs had a roughly 50% greater chance of getting Alzheimer's than those that didn't. Although the study didn't provide an exact cause, the risks for dementia increased the longer people took the medications. The researchers warned that such treatments should not be used for over 3 months. Korea's National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art is a venue for artists, especially young artists, to display not only their artworks but their visions and dreams. Our Im Hyun-hee takes us to the MMCA, where one exhibit is garnering much attention. Take a look.
Is it a building? Or is it art? Some might say it's a creative masterpiece. But to others, it's a cutting-edge display of architecture.
So where does art and architecture meet? I met with one of the curators for the MMCA to find out. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to meet you. So what is the relationship between art and architecture?
The relationship between art and architecture, it is very difficult to answer the question. The Min Hyun-jun, the architect of this museum and one of the jury members of this project, he says that the architecture is a device to make people gathering and networking. I mean, this project, YEAP project, fostering and finding young talented architects. So the museums, they give them the opportunity to present their own project. So the architecture is changing and it's getting more closer to the art. You are right standing on their project. This project.
This is the winner.
Yeah, this is the winner's project. The Shin Se-min play. Yeah, in Korean, Shin Se-min Norum. So as you see, this project is very, very interesting. So we are standing on the sky bridge, and the smoke. Can you touch it? It's very cool, and the summer in Seoul is very hot. So one of the aims of this project is to provide a space of shade, sitting, water, so they can sit down and they enjoy the shade and the water is cooling. So this is the project. So as you did, actually this balloon, these balloons are the key parts of this project. Some people say this is like a mushroom or this is like an onion.
It does look like mushrooms.
This means the clouds, the clouds. The title of the project, Shin Se-min play. So Shin Se-min, they live on top of the mountains, and from the view from the mountains, I mean, they can see the clouds and mountains, and there are a couple of trampolines at the bottom. So people jump up and down. So when they jump up, they technically they live in the heavens world, and when they go down, it's like a human being's world. So it's like
very interactive.
Exactly.
Active experience.
People, especially the children. They do like it. So during the weekends, you will see a long queue in front of each trampoline.
So it's very much like a culture project, incorporates Korea's history, Korea's culture. Right. But it's the Young Architects program. So tell us more about the architects, the artists.
This program is for the young architects. We don't have any critical age limit. They are like under 40s or slightly over 40s. So basically they are young. But they are very talented. So we received recommendations from 26 academics and medias and architects. And among them, we selected 5 finalists based on their portfolios. And to the finalists, we gave them a project. Okay, this is the place, and we want a project like this. So they made a presentation, and the Munjibang, they were selected as a winner. And we wanted something very unique here. So they developed a concept like a Shin Se-min. The members from outside the country, they were very fascinated by this idea. So I think that's the reason behind this selection.
Right, so I did a little bit of research before it came, and I was getting ready to walk amongst the clouds, and it's a little bit hot today, so the mist is very nice, but it's very pretty.
Oh, can I give you last advice?
Yes.
When you come to the museum at night again, the view is totally different.
Here, at this piece.
Yeah. There are some lights in some of the balloons, and the view is totally different. It's just more than amazing. Yeah, you will like it.
So for the sun to go down.
Try later and
I'll
night.
just stick around. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much for
coming. Nice meeting you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast, and we are having a typical fall-like weather today here in Korea. And we started off with a cool morning, but the temperatures have since risen more than 10 degrees, and things will cool back off into the mid-teens later this evening. So do be aware of the temperature gaps. And the skies are looking clear with lots of sunshine. However, clouds are expected to move in later, which will bring down the temperatures a bit. Until then, we can expect the daytime highs to range from the mid-20s to the low 30s, so get outside and enjoy the weather if you can. And going over to our temperature readings for today, Seoul will peak at 30 degrees this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will hit 29 and 27 degrees. Now moving over to other regions, Jeju Island gets up to 26, while Dokdo reaches over to 24, and Mount Gyeongang is a tad lower at 25 degrees. Now that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and have a wonderful day.
And that's all we have for you now. Thank you for staying with us. I'll be back with more at 4 p.m. Korea time.